Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our third annual summit. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the members of the Cabinet, Board of Trustees, honored guests, and of course, faculty and students. My name is Ian Marshall, and I'm the Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities here at Stockton. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this third annual summit, appropriately themed Culture, Community, and Care. Especially since we're acknowledging the semi-quincentennial year of the United States. We've planned an engaging, interactive itinerary for you today, beginning with performances from some of our performing arts students, and culminating with a hip-hop block party in the park right across the street. Right now, I'd like to take just a minute or two to especially thank President Bertolino. Under his leadership, the arts and humanities have flourished at Stockton. He has succeeded in making our Galloway campus a veritable art gallery. He's strengthened the ties between Stockton and community organizations such as the Bay Atlantic Symphony and the African American Museum of Southern New Jersey. And along with Provost Palladino, he has redoubled Stockton's commitment to a strong liberal arts education for our students. This summit, the time and creative space that it provides us to just talk about art with old colleagues and new, would not be possible without the President's vision, and we in the School of Arts and Humanities are truly grateful for that leadership and support. So once again, welcome to all of you. I've enjoyed the theatrical performances, the artistic displays that I've seen over the past year, and I'm very much looking forward to working with many of you in the coming months as we continue to celebrate the United States at 250.
So it is a complete and total surprise to me to welcome you this morning. So I'm glad I was here, but this is coming upon my second year at the university and second time I've had the opportunity to be part of this, and I just echo the sentiments that Dean Marshall shared this morning. The arts, and by extension, everything that we do in our School of Arts and Humanities and more broadly, is so critical to not only our academic programming at the university, but being one of and in the community, as President Joe likes to say. And so I can't tell you how thrilled we are to be able to support a venture like this, and we hope that the Arts and Culture Summit just continues to grow. Thank you for taking time to be here, because I know there are no lack of things for you to participate in and do at this time of the year. And I just ask a very simple favor, that you tell your friends and ask your friends to tell their friends, because this is a gem of ours at Stockton. You've seen this in our students, and our student work and performances is an extension of the outstanding experiences they have with our faculty and staff. And our faculty and staff are too modest to tell you this, but they are outstanding practitioners of the arts. So I do want to take a moment to give them a round of applause, please, those who are here today and not here. Everything they do is for our students, and you can see that reflected in our amazing students. So thank you for being here. Please continue to engage with us and send us your ideas and thoughts for how we can best serve the arts community of Atlantic City and Greater Atlantic County. If you're not familiar, tons of fantastic programming, not only here in Atlantic City, but on our main campus in Galloway. Encourage you to take lots of the materials that we have outside for you. And please, please, please take advantage of all that we have to richly support the arts here at Stockton. So thanks very much. Appreciate the opportunity to say a few words.
Please welcome our president, Dr. Joe Bertolino to the stage, affectionately known as President Joe.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Well, I don't think that I will not be able to dance or sing or do any of that, but our students were fantastic, weren't they? Let's give them another round of applause. They are the reason why we are here. And so I just wanted to first take a moment to thank the provost for his amazing work in the time that he has been here. We have accomplished some amazing things in our academic affairs area and our academic curriculum, and so I'm grateful for the work that he has done. The work of our faculty, as you can see, is reflected in what our students do every day. I'd like to thank Dean Marshall for helping to lead this endeavor, and a special welcome to our Assemblyman McClellan. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. We can give them a round of applause. Thank you very, very much. Sorry thank you for finding your way up here, even though they may not have mentioned that. Guess what? You were speaking. You didn't get the email. Well, evidently I did, because they just, So I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. And most importantly, I want to thank folks for their energy and their creativity and their commitment to this year's theme of our Arts and Culture Summit. It's culture, community, and care. And I want to talk a little bit about that because, as you know, here at Stockton, we have spent a great deal of time talking about an ethic of care. But before I do that, I do want to say thank you very, very much to the Atlantic City campus operations, the team here, the Office of Community Engagement, the Noyes Museum, the School of Arts and Humanities, University Advancement, and all of the folks behind the scenes. You have our tech people over there, and there are a lot of folks that have to help put all of this together that you don't get to see. In fact, folks were outside as I walked in, cleaning up, setting up, collecting chairs, etc. None of this happens without the support of every member of the community, whether you're the president or whether you're the person who's outside taking care of the ground. So if we could give those folks a round of applause, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. And you're going to hear, I want to recognize our keynote speaker today, Jane Golden, who's, yes, we can, okay, Jane, whose extraordinary leadership has transformed Mural Arts Philadelphia into a global model for public art and community impact. And so we're honored to have Jane with us today. And to our panelists and moderators, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and guiding today's conversations. And of course, as always, we are proud of our students. Now, we have about 6 weeks left in the semester, if that much, now that I think about it. Not even, I think it's 3, right? 3, 4? I added, some of the students are like, don't add 2 more weeks to my semester. And to any of the students that are still in the room, who's graduating? Who's graduating? You're graduating. You're graduating. We're both excited for you, and we're very sad for us, because your performances and your involvement here at the university have been amazing. So we wish you well, but we're not gonna send you off yet, because you still have 4 weeks of classes. Yes, it's gonna be great. You know, we're proud to be in Atlantic City, and we are proud as part of the Atlantic County community to be an anchor institution. And what does that mean? That designation is more than being present in a place. It's more than physical presence. It means being deeply connected to the region, bringing people together, using our collective strength, and trying to create some meaningful change. And I think that today's summit helps to do that. This was something that we had talked about when I first arrived, creating a celebration of our arts and culture and expanding the work we already do in that celebration. And so the event that had initially been scheduled as part of my inaugural ceremonies, we just decided to keep on doing. And we will continue to keep on doing it year over year, because I think it's a wonderful celebration of who we are, of our region, of the arts within the community, of how Stockton contributes to that community, but also how the community contributes to Stockton. And so we are gathering over the course of today as artists and educators and students and community leaders and partners in one space to create something larger than any one of us can achieve alone. We create possibility, we create dialogue, and we create the conditions for transformation. As I said before, the theme culture, community, and care, I think speaks directly to who we are and what we believe at Stockton. At the heart of the work that we have been doing over the last couple of years, we have focused on an ethic of care, ensuring that people are treated with dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, civility. Now, I'm not going to say that we achieve that all the time. It is always a work in progress. And there are times that we falter and then we pick up and we brush ourselves off and we continue the work. Because leading with an ethic of care, being a community of care, especially today, is hard. It's hard work, and it requires us to be intentional as a community. And so my hope is that for us, care means recognizing the humanity in every person, taking the time to listen deeply. And it means supporting one another through challenges and celebrating each other's successes. And in times, that can feel uncertain or divided. Care can be even more essential during these times where we have divided communities, a divided nation in many respects. It's how we build resilience, promote healing, and how we sustain a sense of shared purpose. The arts play a vital role in that work, because the arts are a language that goes across all cultures, all peoples. One can sit and listen and watch and observe and learn without uttering a single word themselves. Art has a unique ability to connect us across experiences, across perspectives. It invites us to see the world through someone else's eyes, and it challenges us to reflect, to question, to grow, and it reminds us that even in our differences, there is a common thread of humanity that binds us together. Artists help us make sense of the world. They illuminate stories that might otherwise go unheard, and they create spaces where dialogue can happen, where empathy can grow, and where new ideas can take root. And where better to do that than at a university? We've heard a lot lately about universities and colleges and higher education and whether it is valuable. Well, I think what we are doing here is an example of why it is valuable and why it matters. Because ultimately our goal is to bring people together and to allow people to listen to others, to share perspectives, and to engage in civil discourse sometimes, and sometimes agree to disagree, but to do so with care. That is what today is about. It's about coming together as a community, where every voice matters and every perspective has value. And it's about learning from one another and strengthening the bonds that connect us. And it's about reaffirming our shared commitment to building a more inclusive, more compassionate, and more vibrant future. So, as we move throughout the day, today's program, I want to encourage you to be fully engaged. I want you, as the provost already said, call your friends, call your family, call your neighbors, and tell them wherever they are, come, join us, enjoy, relax. It's beautiful outside, a little chilly, but the sun is shining, and there is no snow or rain. And we'll take that. And we're asking folks to come and share and spend some time with us and enjoy the moment. Because this summit, I think, represents the best of who we are and who we can be. So finally, I would like to invite all of you to do three things, if I may. First, I ask you, as you experience Stockton today, to please talk to others about your experience at Stockton. So many times, in a few weeks, we're going to have 1,000 students here and a couple thousand people with their families to decide whether or not they want to be a student at Stockton University. More often than not, when people find their way to this campus or when they find their way to the Galloway campus, they are surprised by what they see and what they find. There have been folks in the community who have lived in Atlantic County for decades and yet have never set foot on the Stockton campus. And so I ask you to talk about what you experienced at Stockton today and any day. Secondly, I invite you to come back and bring others with you. And third, if you're part of an organization or a business or any part of the community that is organized in some way and you are looking for a partner, we are your public regional institution. We are your public regional university. We are here to serve and to be part of the community and to give back to the community. I see that as a moral responsibility. And yes, we do so through the arts, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. And so I would invite you to call us first to be a partner. And if we can be, we will certainly put ourselves out there to serve you. So again, my congratulations to everyone who helped put this together today. My congratulations to our students. I want to give our students one more round of applause because I just think they're terrific. Thank you very, very much and enjoy the summit.
Thank you very much, President Joe. Please welcome to the podium Assemblyman Antoine McClellan.
Good morning. We're at a great celebration to be here today to celebrate, our students, to celebrate Stockton University and the great things they do. And Dr. Joe is everywhere. And, as much as I travel up and down the state, and I know you're around, I call it the real South Jersey, but your presence is needed and it's appreciated. And thank you for all that you do to celebrate not only South Jersey, celebrate Stockton University, and celebrate these students here, because you do a great job, and I appreciate seeing you around and doing the great things that you do. And also allowing your staff and administration to do great things as well, because they're always so inviting, whether it's the Galloway campus or the Atlantic City campus, always inviting. And I greatly appreciate coming here to celebrate the great things that you guys do on this campus. And definitely another applause to the students, because the students are awesome. So great job to you guys. And as I sit here, I look around and I realize that, art doesn't ask, who you voted for. It doesn't, check your background. It doesn't know where you live at or your zip code. It doesn't ask you for your title. It just wants you to know, do you feel this? You know, will you stand here next to somebody you probably never even met, experience something that you've never even done before together, because that happens in the theater. It happens on a stage. It happens when you look at a painting. It happens on a city block when you see a beautiful mural. You're just standing there and you're looking at strangers, your neighbors. You're sharing a moment, a memory. But it builds a community. It makes a community stronger when you can sit there and look at that moment and share something without speaking. You're just sitting there embracing somebody. You're not speaking. You're just embracing what you see. And that idea, that connection through that experience is exactly what gatherings like this and why they matter. Arts, cultural organizations play a critical role in strengthening our communities. And that creates spaces where people can come together and engage one another and participate in something meaningful. They're doing something to foster understanding. They're doing something to encourage dialogue. They're reinforcing a sense of belonging that holds communities together and strengthens our backbones. And it's very important that we do that. And right here at Stockton University, that work happens every day through programs that elevate the arts, from going to the Noise Museum, which is a half a mile away, the community-based partnerships that Stockton creates, the engagement that the students have, not only with their professors, but with the community as a whole. Stockton is just not educating students. They're actively, shaping cultural ecosystems. And that reaches beyond the campus. That reaches beyond Atlantic County. It reaches into Cape May County. It gets up to Hunterdon County. It gets into Ocean County. I met somebody here today from Ocean County who's a professor there. And that type of stuff is encouraging to see, as I travel up and down the state. And I celebrate the real South Jersey. And I let people know what we have here, that the gym is here. And trying to convince, doctors to move down here full time from Union County. And that's the type of thing that we need to do. And this region is very important, and that's what we need to continue to celebrate, is this region and what we have down here. And Atlantic City is special. And the theaters and the galleries and the public displays and the installation of the artists and organizations that are here are special. And I don't know many people understand that, but many people should. And I'm going to continue to carry that as I go around this state and let people know not only what Stockton does, not only what the students do, not only what your administration does, but what it means and how it can facilitate to great things in our community and bring us together and make it like no other. I know everybody's looking at me and realizes that I'm like 6'5" and 250 pounds that can dunk a basketball or shoot like Dr. Joe did at Stockton University, but somebody can be 5'6" and 100 pounds and make an idea happen and change somebody's experience. So you don't need to be a great athlete to make $2 million and think you're the best thing ever. You can make a painting. You can sing a song. You can play the flute. You can do some spoken word and change somebody's life. And you can encourage that. So, before we leave here today, I just want, everybody just to sit down and think for a second. Take a moment. Look at the person sitting next to you. You may not know them. You may not know their story. You may not know where they're from. You may not know what their family does. But just close your eyes, take that moment, and you're here together. And realize how powerful that the art is. Because we're here together. I may not know who you are. I may not have seen you before. But we're here together experiencing this, experiencing our young people, and realizing this is special. And that's what the art does. Whether it's here in Atlantic City, Philadelphia, Newark, New Jersey, Cape May County, it's special. And will always bring people together. Regardless whatever race you are or your gender, the arts will bring you together. So let's continue to celebrate that. Let's continue to celebrate this summit. And I promise you that I will bring people here. I will shout it out so everybody knows that they need to come to this summit next year and the years after that and see how special our university is. So may God bless you. May God continue to bless the arts. And let's continue to celebrate this beautiful university. Have a blessed day.
That was wonderful, Assemblyman McLennan. Thank you very, very much for that. Now I'm pleased to welcome Jane Golden as our keynote speaker for the second day of our summit. And I'm especially excited to hear her talk after listening to her inspiring presentation at yesterday's Paul Lyons lecture series. A perusal of Golden's work reveals a commitment not only to making art visible, but also to the importance of providing those tools necessary for ordinary, everyday people to see themselves as artists and indeed become artists. One passage from her website that caught my attention reads, quote, "Mural arts, collective art-making process became a powerful tool for generating dialogue, building relationships, empowering communities, and sparking economic revitalization. That collaborative process still drives our work today. Art," the quote goes on to say, "is the building block for community dialogue and action, and the catalyst for exploring creative solutions to society-wide challenges." This is a wonderful description of the important work that Golden has done over the years. Jane Golden holds a Master's of Fine Arts from Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers University and degrees in Fine Arts and Political Science from Stanford University. She is the recipient of numerous awards, including the Pearl S. Buck International Woman of Influence Award, the Philadelphia Award, the Visionary Woman Award from Moore College of Art, and Governor Josh Shapiro's Pennsylvania's 2025 Keynote Award. Please join me in welcoming Jane Golden to the podium. I am so excited to hear this. Congratulations.
Okay, great. And I am going to take this off too because I like to walk around. Okay, so hi everyone. First, I want to thank. This is a great school. This is such a wonderful college. I grew up in Margate, South Jersey. Yay! But what a great community. And President Joe, may I? I really appreciate your remarks. To the artists who are here, yay, artists! Love artists. And to John and Michael, thank you so much. You have been so welcoming and wonderful, and just great to be part of this Arts and Culture Summit. So I'm going to say a few things first, and then we're going to look at images. So I was an artist who thought I'd be a lawyer, so that I was a double major at Stanford. And when I was at Stanford, my painting professors were like, "Look, you shouldn't go to law school. You should just, when you graduate, get a job and paint, and just make sure the job is, sort of like boring and won't take away from your, your creative impulse." So I remember telling my parents that, and they're like, "Well, oh, so great you went to Stanford." So I moved down to LA, and I got a job, and I was like pretty miserable in this job. And I got a little studio, and I was painting and felt pretty isolated. And then one day I was coming home from the boring job, and I read about this organization that gave out grants to mural painters. And at that time, LA was sort of like Philly. It was like the center of the mural universe. There were like beautiful murals everywhere. And when I grew up, I grew up with parents, like a mural-friendly household, because my parents always talked about the WPA murals, and I always felt that art could serve a social purpose. And my paintings were sort of like, I was like a social realist painter. So I said, I just really want to do a mural. So I called up the LA Mural Program, asked them if I could do a mural, just like that. And they were like, "No, doesn't work that way. You have to apply, A, and B, you're past the deadline and come back next year." So I decided to ask them, well, what if I wasn't past the deadline? What would I have to do? And they said, well, you have to find a wall, you have to study the community and do something about your community, and then hire people from the community. So we'll see you next year when you apply. So I said, thank you. And then I did everything they said. I researched the community. There had been a pier that reminded me of Atlantic City that had been torn down. Everyone was sad. And then I am a wall hunter, so I walked around. I saw a great wall. I knocked on the door of this building, and I introduced myself and told this person I wanted to do a mural on his wall, and he was like yes, and didn't know me, was not interested in seeing my work, seemed actually not interested in me, and I was just like, So you're going to let, I must have said it 20 times, you're going to let me, a stranger, do a mural on your wall? And he was like, whatever. So I was like, well, this is like apathy, but I guess this is a yes. And then I like talked to people in the neighborhood, and I ended up like writing up this application. I sent it to the LA Mural program, and they were like, no, you still are past the deadline. Like, I'm not sure what you understand. Like 4 weeks ago, you were past the deadline. It's next year. So they kept repeating it over and over again because it wasn't quite sinking in. I'm very tenacious. So then I called them every day for months because I am very tenacious, and we have made it through 6 mayors, which is amazing. And so finally, after months, I got a call, and they said, oh, we'd like to speak to Jane Golden. I'm like, this is she. And they started out by saying, we hope we never hear from you again. It's always a great way to get a call. So I was like, oh, who's this? And they said, this is the LA Mural program. You have the grant. So the grant was like $300 to do a giant wall. So then I was like, oh no, I've never done a mural. So then I had to figure out how to do a mural. I'd been disingenuous on my application. I'm like, oh, I've done murals all over Stanford's campus. So then I dusted off the design. I went back to the people who were so friendly and said they'd work with me. And I got everyone together, and then we did this mural about this pier. And it was so exciting, standing on that corner in Santa Monica. Like, people came up to me and talked about neighborhood issues, community concerns, like all these strangers. And I'm like, this is so exciting. Like, everybody should have art in their life. And I'm like, right, that's what murals do. And I think that I had thought about murals from a very sort of academic or theoretical standpoint, and not like the real deal of standing there and interacting with the public. And I'm like, everybody should have art. And I remember telling my parents that everyone should have art. And they're like, okay, when's law school? And I'm like, soon. I think I'm going to do murals. But see, in the meantime, like, it was so exciting because this mural it wasn't that great, but it was like cheered by people. And then when it was over, I told this story yesterday, but it's sort of funny. So then it was over. People are like, you should dedicate it. I'm like, great. You should get someone famous to dedicate it. And I'm like, I'm 22 from New Jersey. Like, I don't know anybody famous. And they're like, Jane Fonda lives down the street. So I went down the street. They showed me her house. I knocked on the door. I'm covered in paint. And she answers. And I'm like, oh, hello. I'm Jane Golden. She goes, I know who you are. I'm like, you do? And she said, yes, what would you like? I'm really proud of you. I had all women on the crew. We were like lifting paint and moving scaffolding. And she was like so excited. So I said, after I said, would you cut the ribbon? She said, oh, what else can I do? And so I didn't really know what to say. Like, now maybe I'd ask for a donation. But then I said, you could bring friends, because I thought she was like super popular. So she said, I'd be happy to bring friends, which she did. And it was this giant dedication with like 500 people. And so I thought, what is it that is drawing people here? I mean, I've only been in LA a minute. It was really the power of the art. It was the power of art to recreate something that was really important and dear to people that had gone away. And it sort of counters erasure, which of course I didn't really get at the time, but I completely understand now. So anyway, fast forward, I did mural. I then got really sick. I have lupus. I was told I wouldn't live very long. It was a hugely depressing period of my life. And I came back east to be with my family, and I would go up to Philly to get treatments at Hahnemann Hospital. So when I was there, I started reading, I was reading in the Inquirer that Philadelphia had a new mayor. It was our first black mayor. And it was like so exciting, I can't even begin to tell you. It was like palpable. It was in the air that Philadelphia was finally changing. And so I would read all these articles about Wilson Goode. And there was a couple articles about this anti-graffiti network he was going to start. And he said it occurred to him that the only way this could be successful was if he were going to work with young people who were writing on walls to clean up the city. And that he thought that a lot of the young people had talent, so he would have a little art division. So I said, that could be my job, the little art division. So I sort of circled it in the newspaper, went home, wrote Wilson Goode a letter. Dear Mayor Goode, I would be so honored to work in your administration. I've done murals in Los Angeles. I'm attaching my resume. And, I mailed it. This is before email. I feel like it's like 1,000 years ago. So it's like when Shakespeare wrote. So I mailed a letter, and then I thought, well, probably, like, I'm not going to hear from a mayor, right? It seemed a stretch. I even thought that was a stretch. But one night, a few weeks later, I got a call. I had gone to the movies. My dad was on the porch, and he said, you won't believe who called tonight. And I said, who? And he goes, someone from Mayor Goode's office. I'm like, no. And he goes, his name is Oliver Franklin. He's the head of arts and culture for Mayor Good, and he wants to talk to you. So like the next day, I think I woke up at like 5 in the morning, start calling the city of Philadelphia. No one's answering. So I'm like, oh yeah, it's early. And then I finally got Oliver Franklin on the phone, and he was like, oh, this is such a coincidence. I know your boss in LA. So I said, you do? And he goes, yeah, and I already called her. So my spine stiffened because I'm a pest. I really am. I sort of can wear people out. I know this about myself. I can be very honest. So I was like, oh, what did she say? And he said, well, she said, I want to tell you 2 things about Jane Golden. So I'm like, uh-oh. Is it number 1, she said, she's the most tenacious person in the world and she will wear anyone out. So I was like, okay. And go on, what's next? And then next was, you should definitely hire her. So I was like, yes. So then he said, come out to Philly. So I came out to Philly. I met with Oliver Franklin. He walked me over to Tim Spencer, who's the new director of the Anti-Graffiti Network. Tim looks at my resume. It's a 5-minute conversation. And he said, okay, if you want this job, well, it's a new job. He goes, we don't really have a title for this job, so you're going to be a field representative because that's what everybody else is called, because there were 10 community organizers and now me. And he goes, your pay will be $12,500 a year. There's no desk for you. So I said, that's fine, I'm flexible. I can live without a desk. He said, and your job is to rechannel the negative energy of graffiti writers to something positive. That was what he said. That's it exactly, verbatim. And he said, good luck. So I was like, is this the end of the conversation? And it seemed to be. So then I had this job. And I walked out into a room half the size of this room, and there were all these community organizers and 1 million young people, like so many young people. And they had backpacks that seemed to make, they just clearly had spray cans in their backpack. And then they would go out in the hall and seemed to be spraying on the halls of City Hall Annex. And there were the guards at City Hall. It was like totally, think of a police drama from a long time ago that you watched on television. That was this room. And it was just like chaos. And I'm like, I love it. I'm like living on the edge. This is so great. I knew nothing about Philly. I had never met a graffiti writer. I was like, okay. But the community organizers were incredible because they said, Jane Golden, you're going to work in Philly. You go into neighborhoods with questions. You don't have answers. You're in someone else's home. You go in with utmost respect, and you go in with humility. And that's how you're going to do this job. And I was like, that is fine. And so I started working for Anti-Graffiti, and I was there for 10 years. And I want to tell you something. It was like getting 3 graduate degrees and how one works in neighborhoods, how one understands the city, and how one understands what art can mean. So let's start. Okay, so Philly back in the day, there was graffiti everywhere and no one really thought it would go away, and no one trusted that the mayor, or a lot of people were skeptical of this program called the Anti-Graffiti Network. And how did we get graffiti writers? There was a pledge with Wilson Good where young people would come in and they would swear they would never write on walls for the rest of their life, which wasn't true at all, and nobody really stopped immediately, and life is incremental, and that's just the way it is. However, it was a start. And what we could offer young people is we offered them art. That was me, trying to figure out what to do. And the community organizers who would work with kids with different alternatives. We would organize community cleanups. And remember, because someone asked me a question about graffiti yesterday. And I want to tell you, the young people I worked with were a total blessing in my life. Completely changed so much about the way I think about the world. I'm in touch with many of them now. I worked with some of them, many of them, for years and years. They became like family to me. They were extraordinarily talented. They carried black books. They had amazing drawings. But there was the other side, and that was the community leaders that we worked with who felt inundated by graffiti, who were not happy with graffiti, the elders who felt like it was oppressive. And we had the responsibility to listen to everybody, to the seniors on the block, to kids who love graffiti, to academics who said it was like poetry, and to everybody in between. And so once I started to get it, how talented young people were, and once I really got that what they did not have were opportunities, then I realized that what we need to do is offer young people every opportunity and option possible, and anything less than that, quite frankly, was completely unacceptable. And so I thought to myself, okay, I need to talk to graffiti writers, I need to work with them, I need to understand it, and then we need to provide them with a program that will not just reteach them spraying walls, because they're good at that, they know how to do that, but they need to learn everything else. Sorry. So I said, okay, so we started having programs. We had programs at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I know it was like the Philadelphia Museum of Art was not thrilled with this, but I emphasized that I was coming with former graffiti writers and not current, and they let us have a program there. And then we worked in churches, we worked in schools, we worked in recreation centers, but the big break for me came when my boss gave me an assistant. The assistant wrote Tran all over the city because he loved writing on trains. He worked for SEPTA, our mass transit agency. He told me he did light maintenance in the tunnels. He did. It wasn't maintenance, but he was in the tunnels with all his friends. He had lots of keys. And Tran introduced me to a lot of the graffiti writers. The graffiti writers, I said we should have a summit with the mayor and to talk about what we could do for alternatives. But before that happened, Tran actually brought a lot of young people to my home because he knew where I lived. And when I opened the door, there was like cornbread, Cool Earl Baby Rock, M.A., Pez, like the community organizers in the office would have these like sort of like funny, they thought, most wanted posters, like, we're looking for Baby Rock. And there was Baby Rock. I was like, oh, so I didn't know what to do because I'd never met so many graffiti writers. So I invited them in. In fact, they tease me now because I said, come in, we'll chat and have some tea. And they're like, tea? And then they come in and they look over at my bookshelf and they're like, look at all those art books. So I'm like, okay, everybody, like, let's look at our books. Then I showed them books of murals in LA, Chicago, San Francisco. And I said, this is what we're going to do in Philadelphia. We're going to do murals in Philly. And you all could do that. You could do something that's unusual. Artists all over the country would love this. You could get paid to paint because Wilson could put $6 million of city money on the table to employ young people. Most of the money went for kids. And so they said, well, we don't want to join because we can't use spray. I said, you know how to use spray. Why don't we learn like to build scaffolding, to do like to learn from architects and planners and how you do blueprints and how we scale up murals and how you use acrylics and oils and pastel and charcoal. And we'll go to poetry readings. We'll go to the Museum of Modern Art. And I realized that you're only as good as your word. So everything I was saying, I had to deliver on. And a few teachers left the school district, joined us, and then it was first it was stop and start. It wasn't like everybody just signed up. And they did, after that night in my house, they did write their names down Broad Street in Philadelphia with one addition, Cool Jane, which was like, ugh. And so I was like, I've never been cool. Erase it. We cleaned that. So it was stop, start, stop, start. But they were so fantastic. And we eventually bonded to create this art division of the Anti-Graffiti Network. We had art shows. We got the best art supplies. They met like well-known black artists in Philly. We would go to the museum every week. It was really extraordinary. And we started doing murals. Let me see if I can go back. Oh, here. Nope. Do you know how to go back with this? There must be a way. Okay. Help is on the way. Great. Just want to go back to Dr. J.
It's this red button right here. There we go.
Okie dokie, thank you. So Dr. J was one of our first murals. I love Dr. J. So this was a very famous artist from LA. He got like $50,000 a mural. We got $2,000. I was like, would you come to Philly for $2,000? He said, only if I can do Dr. J in a suit. So he wanted to inspire young people to think past sports. And so I was like, how do I get a hold of Dr. J? So one of the field reps said, oh, he's shooting a TV commercial in Center City. So he said, I'm going to call the agent. I said, you call the agent. Great. He called the agent. The agent said, oh, I'll give her 5 minutes. So I ran in. I said, Dr. J, my name's Jane Golden. I work with kids. I work in communities. And he was like, slow down. And he said, what would you like? I said, will you pose for our mural? He goes, of course I will. So then we met him. And then this whole wall was covered with graffiti, the lot, trash up to here. We cleaned the lot. We did this mural. People were cheering it. And then, of course, people were cheering it. But then you have that sliver of society. They're the naysayers. They say, oh, that wall's going to get defaced. Oh, the kids you're working with are going to get in trouble again. And we would be like, stop. Is this your time or our time? Oh, it's our time. So if we're wasting it, I guess we're going to find out. But in the meantime, we're driven and tenacious, and you are not going to tell us what to do. So we are doing this. And then no one wrote on it. And I was like, victory. And then the mayor's like, oh my God, we're really onto something. I'm like, yes, we are. So for 10 years, we worked in communities. We worked with young people. And the most inspiring part of this was that community leaders were so skeptical of the power of art. They were like, look, we want housing, we want jobs, rightfully so. They're not interested in art. And people said repeatedly to us, things are done to us or not done. And the only visual stimulation we have in the neighborhoods are billboards advertising alcohol and tobacco. And we said, let's change it. What do you want? And when we asked that question, there was an outpouring of like people talking about their heroes, their history, their memories, and that art could dignify all of it. So it started to be like this vast collection started to emerge, and art was being delivered as a city service. And in neighborhoods where the only other visible city people were the police, this group of artists, me, teaching artists, and all these fabulously brilliant young people started to create public art. And then, so 10 years go by, and then I think, then my former boss gets really sick, he dies way too young, anti-graffiti closes down, so I think, I'm going to law school. So then, I apply, I get into law school, my brother's a lawyer, he says, don't go to law school. So I said, what do you mean I got in? Like, that was like really hard. And he said, I said, well, what do you think I should do? He said, you should run an art program for the city. I said, there isn't one. He said, go start one. I was like, huh. So, oh, thank you, that's so nice. So I went to see the mayor, new mayor now, Ed Rendell. I said, could we start a community-based public art program? He goes, well, that's actually interesting. I expected him to say no immediately. And he said, I admired the work that was done at Anti-Graffiti. I've been trying to figure out a way to carry on the spirit of Anti-Graffiti, and give me a week. He said, oh, where do you want to be in city government? We were so ready. Department of Recreation, because there was a very good commissioner. So we went back. He said, think of a name. So it was me, Deidre Godanis, the really wonderful educator, and some of the former graffiti writers. Because of budget cuts, we had lost a ton of funding. So it was just 5 of us. So we said, what should we call ourselves? It's like when you're little and you have a spy club. Come up with a name. So we're like, the Mural Arts Program. We go back to the mayor. We want to be the Mural Arts Program. And he goes, okay, that's exactly who you're going to be. And he said, Jane Golden, you're in charge. I was like, because I'd never been in charge of anything. And like our budget was tiny. And we report to work, and the first thing the commissioner says to us is, I'm so happy you're here, but we don't have a desk for you. I'm like, am I haunted? Like, I never have a desk. It's like uncanny. So then he gave us an empty floor in this government building, and I'm like, we're artists, we love empty floors. So we pulled together some rickety furniture. This is 1998. And we sit around this table. It was like, it was totally lopsided. And we're like, we're the Mural Arts Program, yay! We're a pro-art program. We're not anti-anything. And so we're going to open our doors to all kids. We're going to use spray. We're going to, if we want, we're going to just make sure that everybody has art. Art is like oxygen, period, non-negotiable. So, and then it was like one after another after another. Look at this. This is So Beautiful by Meg Seligman. 8 stories tall, giving kids the dignity and respect they deserve. And then this is a snapshot of whom. So fast forward, Philadelphia has 4,400 murals in the city. We work with 25,000 constituents. We have many major departments. And look at this statistic. For all the artists in the audience, we employ 250 artists every year. Yay, jobs for artists. And we are unrelenting about that. We have a fellowship program for Black and brown artists. We have an assistantship program, an apprenticeship program. You name it, we have it, because we're trying to create pathways all the time. So we're busy bees. Half our money comes from the city, half we raise, and it's tiring, but we do it. So now I'm going to take you through some of the different departments at Mural Arts. Okay, here we go, public art and civic engagement. So we're doing about 140 projects every year, so it's a little bit like an engine. But the nice thing is there's a huge waiting list of people who want work. The demand far exceeds our ability to do it. Why? Because people see art as extremely invaluable in the city of Philadelphia. So going back in the day, this is one of our first murals when we became Mural Arts. We were in a neighborhood where all communication had shut down between blacks and whites. And we said we had a grant to do a series of murals about Quaker history and philosophy. And we went to the mayor and said, we want to do a peace wall. And he was like, you are very naive. This is not going to help at all. So we ignored him. And so a good friend of mine was a deputy mayor, Lillian Ray. She's black, obviously, I'm white. And we went door to door, and some people just slammed the door in our face, like, we don't want to talk to you. And some people were like, well, I might come to a meeting. So then my husband's a filmmaker, and he suggested we do a mural, because people kept talking about that they wanted a mural with hands, and that can be hugely cliche, or it could be meaningful. He said, why don't you use real people's hands? I'll photograph it, you digitize the image, project it on the wall at night, and you can paint it. And I'm like, well, we've never done any of that, but we'll give it a try. So we were in a church. We didn't, nobody came the first time. Second time around, people came through the door, young, old, black, white. Everyone reached towards each other, which was remarkable in itself. When we did the mural, we were working at night. People came down, they said, is this a movie? And we said, no, we're doing a mural. And then people started talking to us and talking to each other. And that was a breakthrough. And the dedication here was the most integrated event in Grace Ferry. I'm not saying that everything we do is like a panacea for issues that cities struggle with, but I'm saying that I've been a witness to the powerful catalytic role that art plays in the life of a city. And now we'll go through some more quickly. Just beautiful, beautiful murals that we've done over the years. You can see how they sit so lovely in settings. And here at Michelle Ortiz, this is a project that has gone on for a number of years in what's called the Italian market. She calls it the market, and she calls it our market, actually, because there are people in this area from all over the world. And she worked with everyone, brought people together. She fixed up the vendor stands. She did prints on the awnings. She did murals. She did light boxes. She did processions and poetry readings. And then I'm going to shift now to art education. I believe really deeply, as I'm sure you all do, that every young person should have access to art, and we should stop talking about it, and we should just do it. So we serve about 2,500 young people. We work in schools where art is not an option. We also work at the Juvenile Justice Service Center with young people who are really vulnerable and at risk. And the projects we do are beautiful. The kids come in, they learn design and color theory and all the basics, and then they do their own murals, and then they go out and they work on giant murals around the city, so the work connects them to the larger world. Look at this. This is so beautiful because kids were studying physics and science and then did this extraordinary mural. And then over here, another beauty. And then I want to talk about restorative justice. So I'm going to emphasize today restorative justice and our work in behavioral health. So mural arts sees itself at the middle, at the intersection of the public, the private, the social, the civic, and the aesthetic. Our work is across the board. We work with many major departments, agencies, organizations doing good work. We want to put art to work on behalf of citizens across Philadelphia because we think that art can move the needle, sometimes in unexpected ways where other things fail us. I think our traditional interventions, as it relates to problems in cities, they fail us from time to time. So it is incumbent upon us to always think out of the box. So too many people are incarcerated, and so we have been working. We work in a state prison. We've been working there for 20 years, the county jail, and we work with people who are justice impacted. And that's our reentry program. We have 2 reentry programs. And we have a very low recidivism rate. Nationally, the rate is quite high. As a country, we're failing. And we have a high rate of employment. We also do special projects like this with crime victims, victims advocates, and the men at Graterford Prison, which was torn down, and they built a new prison called Phoenix, and thankfully we have continued to work there. Many of the people in the prison we work with are lifers. If they're lucky, they might get out if they were juvenile lifers. Many of them will die in prison. For them, creating art is not just a form of solace, but it is a way of giving back. It's a way of connecting with their families and their communities. And since 2002, we have probably created 75 major murals in the prison on sheets of parachute cloth that come out of the prison and are put up in walls around the city. And they're beautiful. And working in this prison has been a humbling experience in ways I had not anticipated. It has taught me what the word empathy truly means. This project was a difficult project. The crime victims and the advocates and the men did not get along. Everybody argued about who had the most pain, whose life was the hardest. But something changed when they were in that prison auditorium and everybody started to paint together because the power dynamic shifted, and the people with the real power were the men who were the artists who knew how to paint a mural. And then the advocates started really listening to them, and people started to talk. And then the topic was, how can we together do something to make Philadelphia safer? And out of this series of murals came so many different programs. It was really brilliant. And there's a documentary film about it called Concrete, Steel, and Paint, in case you're interested. And then we did this wall. We started at this point working not just with the state prison and the county jail, but also we started working at St. Gabriel's Hall. We worked with kids in residential placement. And we worked with the neighborhood, Kensington. And we worked on sheets of parachute cloth, there we are. And it's called My Life, My Path, My Destiny. I talked about this yesterday. Halfway through the mural, I got an anonymous call. Somebody said that they were going to paint out the mural because they didn't like it. And they said, we didn't realize we were getting a message mural. We thought it was going to be a happy mural. And I didn't know happy murals were a category with us, but evidently they were. So I was like, well, we had 3 community meetings. Like, why didn't you come to the meeting? And it's really about just, innocence, struggle, and then at the end, triumph of young people. So we had this community meeting. It was a terrible community meeting. And one of my gifts is not being, I'm adversarial. So if you make a point, you make a point, I'm going to make a point, you make a point, I'm going to make a point. I'm not going to help. I'm not going to try to diffuse the situation. So my husband, who's very smart, he said, I think you need a mediator. So I was like, right. We had tapped into a court of racism in this neighborhood. And so we found a Quaker mediator who was brilliant. And at the first meeting, she isolated the opposition as being small. And eventually, we worked through a solution where we got people who were naysayers to suggest other people to be added to the mural, which meant we were listening to everybody, even people that we thought were jerks. So it was like we tried, and then every time I tried to add something, the mediator would skip me. She wouldn't call on me at all. Like she would go, next, like just over me. Because I was going to make a point that was not helpful. So and there was a man sitting next to me saying bad things, and I'd be like, you're a jerk. And she'd say, shh. And I'd be like, ugh. But anyway, at the end, everybody came to the dedication. At the end, people listened to each other. At the end, there was really some more peace in a neighborhood where there was tremendous conflict. It was just such a wonderful project. This is about the impact of prison on families, and there are QR codes here where you can hear the voices. Every time we did a design visioning, a paint day, anything, we had all these agencies there that could help families who had loved ones incarcerated. Here we do a series of projects next to community gardens. It's so beautiful. And then this one, we worked with the barns. And I like that this is called a still life because the men said that their lives were very still. And the barns instructors were teaching our students how to look at the world and how to look at art. And then we do something called Swim Philly, where we improve swimming pools and rec centers in Philadelphia. Our advanced program, we have a foundational program called the Guild, and then we have an advanced program called the Rec Crew, and we transform recreation centers because young people should be attending centers that are beautiful and inspiring. And then here, let's see. There we are. You can see us working on there, and that's part of this project with King Saladin. And then Porch Light. So Porch Light, I'm going to go back to 2003, 2004, when we were made part of the Division of Social Services, no longer with Park and Recreation. And there was somebody in charge of social services. In city government, I have learned this, that in order to make the trains run, you need authority, you need a budget, and creativity really helps. And if you have that, things can happen magically. And so Estelle Richmond's one of my heroes, and she brought us in because she loved mural arts, and she said to these big departments, she said, I want mural arts to be part of how you do business. I'm going to leave that up to all of you to figure out. And within a year, we were working with the Department of Behavioral Health, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Prisons, and the Department of Human Services, in ways I had never expected. And since then, our program has tripled, quadrupled, and the impact is deeply felt in many parts of the city. And Porch Light is one of, I'm just really proud of this, because the commissioner back then of the Department of Behavioral Health, he said, you know what, Jane? We have a black box way of working. We send bureaucrats into neighborhoods. We say, we're here to help you. And people go, you know what, we've gotten bad services or no services. So no, thank you. And he said, we need a non-traditional way of working. And he heard me give a presentation, so he took a chance on us. We did a project in a neighborhood was really torn apart with conflict. We started to work with therapists and clinicians And then we did this project at a methadone clinic. We turned the basement into an artist studio. We started working with people before group therapy. We got a little grant to work with the Yale Medical School. They said, we have good data. So we took that data, applied to Robert Wood Johnson, got a $500,000 grant. We matched it with another $500,000. We turned it into $1 million, and we created the Porch Light program. We call it Porch Light because the porch light is warm and welcoming. We work with people struggling with trauma, mental health issues, substance use disorder, and housing insecurity. And with the Yale School of Medicine, they followed us for 4 years, and the data they saw was very positive on individuals and in communities. And they saw in communities something unexpected. They call it collective efficacy, that people felt more ready for good things after an art project came in. So it was like a B12 shot in the community. And look at this, we gave looms to shelters all over the city. This is about it's so beautiful, and it was about suicide awareness. We worked with people who tried to commit suicide and those who lost loved ones to suicide, and a whole community was created. And then this one is we did really intensive work in neighborhoods. We work with a lot of agencies that provide social services. Look at this, rise and shine. The other side says shine. It's so beautiful, and every square is made by one of our participants. Just beautiful. And then we started working with new immigrant communities in Philadelphia. Then we took over empty businesses and turned them into hub spaces like community art centers. We worked with people from Bhutan, Burma, Cambodia, like all over Southeast Asia, and now Mexico we're working as well. And then the bus. We did this bus ran the 47 route, and we worked with a filmmaker. If you went in the bus, you learned about all the communities down this route. And in the back of the bus, it said this big sign, and it said, "We are migrating together." And it was just this wonderful project. And then we've worked with the Office of Immigrant Affairs and the Asian American Pacific Islander Group, and we're doing a series of projects with them. And then look at this, it's so beautiful. That's a neon project we did in the heart of Kensington. And we've worked really a long time in Kensington, a part of our city that's really been frayed because of the opioid crisis. And then we worked with Roberto Lugo, who did these beautiful ceramic vessels in empty spaces. And he's from Kensington, and we had a big advisory committee. And then he wrote a children's book about this young person who discovered his strength and power through the arts. And it's it's in English and Spanish. And then there we go, reading children's books. And then the suicide prevention mural was threatened because these developers said they're going to build in front of it. And so we're like, no, that can't be. You can't do that. So then we decided we are not going to get pushed around by these developers. So we called everybody who was part of that first mural, hundreds of people, and we're like, show up at the zoning board. And everybody showed up. I'm like, we are going to torment the developers. I don't always torment developers. Some of them are quite nice. Just want to go on the record. But I was like, fight. We're going to save the mural. But we couldn't save the mural. And the developers were like, well, we're giving you 6 feet. I'm like, oh, you're so great. Thank you. 6 feet between the old mural and what would be, they're like, oh, here's the building, and there's 6 feet, and there's your mural. I'm like, no, thank you. So then we won. We got $100,000 to do the new mural. Here's the new mural. It's on the side of St. Christopher's Hospital. Yay. It was so victorious. Embracing the Light Paint Day. And then we have this program we're very proud of called Color Me Back. It's a program where we work with people struggling with housing insecurity. We have 2 sites. We pay people who are trained. They do public art. And as they are changing the built environment of the city of Philadelphia. It is so inspiring. And then here we are working there. Look at this is a Color Me Back project. Hope lives here. Then we're working with SEPTA. We're in the concourse. Oh my goodness, it's gray and dismal. We're making it beautiful. And then we do this project, which is a special project where everyone gets to design their own triangle, and it comes together, and we call it the Garden Series. And we have many of these murals now. The Mayor Parker in Philly, she's great. She has this whole initiative around clean and green, and we're doing the Garden Series to make things look really more beautiful. And then we always do the oval every year in our Color Me Back. Participants help paint it. And then, so finally, I want to say what our work is about. It's about impacting individuals. It's about impacting the community. And by extension, there is a huge impact on the civic life of the city of Philadelphia, because we have turned our city into an outdoor museum. But it is a museum that values, that respects the citizens, and we're creating work that has true resonance with people who live there. And it is co-created by thousands and thousands of participants, many of whom thought they would never have the experience of picking up a brush and making a mark. I also want to say that the murals in the city are able to hold on to the history of Philadelphia and represent our city in ways that really dignify the citizens who live there. And I want to end with a final quote. And it's by Rebecca Solnit. And she says, "Together we are very powerful. And we have a seldom told, seldom remembered history of our victories and transformations. That can give us confidence that yes, we can change the world because we have many times before. We can change the world because we have before." Someone asked me yesterday, how do I keep going in spite of obstacles? The answer is art. You row forward looking back, and telling this history is part of helping people navigate towards the future. In today's world, we need a litany, a rosary, a sutra, a mantra, a war chest of our victories to keep us going. The past is set in daylight, and it can become a torch we carry into the night. That is the future. I think art helps keep us focused on the future. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I have time, I think I have time for questions. I love questions. I like yesterday, very hard questions. Very challenging questions, good questions though. So please ask away. Oh yes, great.
Just wondering if you have, I think art museums that are offering information about the mural. If that exists, and if it does, you find it more effective in engaging people, or it doesn't matter? I noticed in one or two of those.
Yes, we have been fairly inconsistent about it, but more of our murals have QR codes now and information, some information about it. Our bigger projects with a bigger budget have plaques and lots of information, but more we're trying to be really consistent about the QR code. Always the artists, the funders, mural arts, a few lines of narrative. We try to be very consistent about that. But the QR code will drive people back to our website or the public art archives where they can learn a lot more.
So then that one instance that you're saying, a number of these had some battles about who was on there, et cetera. Those who see it don't know the background, are taken by the art itself and don't necessarily
That's right. That's right. I think that the older murals, actually, where some of that happened, do not have that. They don't have the story of it. So it's like that would be a dream of ours to try to raise enough funds. So part of it, I think, we have a small but mighty restoration program. But I think just as important as restoration is interpretation. So eventually, I think over the next few years, we'd love to be able to restore more and have better signage, consistent signage. So great question. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Hi. Thank you again for your time. I really do appreciate your emphasis on establishing pathways and facilitating dialogue through art. I was really curious because I've had some experience with re-entry programs and artwork. Would you mind sharing more about the connections you established in collaboration with both returning citizens and lifers, especially like your role at the intersection between like citizens and government institutions?
Oh, great question. So I think what we try to do is mine that connection with city government. And so when we're working in our reentry program, we try to line ourselves up for young people to go on to city jobs. It could be the streets department or L&I, in their different training programs. So we have our ear to the ground to see how to best work with the city. And they have an Office of Reentry Partnerships. So we're always looking for different businesses that are open to hiring our, participants. So that's really important for us. And then, I think we need to really work well at that intersection between the city and us as it relates to working in the county jail, for sure. There's a very good commissioner now who's really open to art. That doesn't always happen, but now there is somebody. And with the state prison, so much of it really depends on politics and who the the superintendent is, like the warden, right? And we've been able to really like, you know, around COVID, they were going to take our art room away from us. So I just like went over like a couple heads. I thought, oh, everybody's going to hate me, but whatever. And so we were able to preserve our art room. But we're very good at going back to people and telling them the value of the work and why it's really important, and we're super grateful. And like in Philly, like all 17 city council people like love mural arts, but we've been hugely responsive. So I mean, and what people ask us to do, like sometimes people on staff are like, oh, we always have to do things for city council. I'm like, what are they asking? Like, can you please do a mural on a rec center? Can you please like get back to this neighborhood? Like it's nothing like egregious. It's always like good work, right? So we want to be like quick, and really responsive so that when I testify, they're like, oh, you know, mural arts is great. Like other departments, they don't want to testify before the city council, but we're happy to because they've seen us in action, and that's super important. So we sort of live in that intersection. That was a great question. Yes.
You mentioned yesterday that Judith Baca is a mentor of yours, is that correct?
Yes.
Judy Baca, maybe.
Judy Baca, yes.
Judy, right. Could you tell the audience a little bit about who she is and how you connect with her and what her influence is on mural arts and your work?
Yeah, so Judy Baca is a Chicano artist from Los Angeles who worked in East LA for many years and then started this program called Spark that gave out grants to muralists. And she's she's like, for me, she was an extraordinary role model of a woman who was going to speak truth to power, and she just very like sort of fierce in a good way in her she was so passionate and such a fighter and you know not going to take no. And I was like, wow, she's amazing. And also her work is quite brilliant. And she did a project called the Great Wall in the Tujunga Wash. It's huge, and it's the history of people of color in the state of California, and it's all the obstacles that people had to face and how they were overcome or maybe not overcome. And it's a brilliant piece of public art. So in my formative years of just not really knowing what I'm doing and just starting out, I was just like very taken with her strength and her power and her commitment to public art making. And, you know, we stayed in touch over the years. And, you know, it's very interesting because we had a different point of view because we were in very different positions. She was like, they lost all their city funding, so she was like an outside agency. So she was a nonprofit. We were part city. So people often ask this question, like why, like this work is beautiful. I think some of it is evocative, some of it's challenging, but it's not overtly political. Like if someone came to me and said, will you do something critical about the mayor? I mean, there's no way. There's not a planet on which we would do that. I wouldn't want to do it because I like our mayor, but secondly, that's not our role. Like we have to be so careful because if this is not about my political ideology, it never has been. Because what's at stake? It's jobs for like a zillion people who would all lose it. And Judy, she went up to that, and she crossed over the edge and was very political and lost the money. And so over the years, she felt I wasn't political enough. I was like, well, I think you were too political. And so we always argued. But then we had this talk. We had a Zoom dialogue over COVID. It was very well attended. And she said to me, you know, I just have to tell you something. And she said, I know I've given you a hard time, but I have so much respect for you. And it was like this moment that was really great. And I was like, well, you know, I really have so much respect for you. Because I do, because it's like we all at the end of the day have to do what we think is best, right? She does her work with integrity. I try to do my work with integrity. We all make decisions for ourselves. Another ED could come along at Mural Arts and make a different decision. I've done what I think is right on behalf of our participants, our constituents, and our artists who I protect with all my life. So thanks for that question. Yes?
I guess, how does the process go?
Yes, it does. It definitely does. So murals happen 5 ways. So we have a mural application, so anybody in Philly can go and apply for a mural. Doesn't mean you can get it because we don't have enough funding, but we will try to be responsive. 2, murals are connected to our departments. 3, an artist might have an idea. 4, it could be connected with city government or funders. That's 5 ways. And so let's say a project comes up, like on the mural application, and we decide to do it. Like, here's a good example. There's a group of people, I know them very well, and we just haven't had the funding to do it right. And it's a tribute to Black dance in our city. And there are people, Joe Myers-Brown, Sidney King, these people are like heroes to the Black dance movement. So finally, we're doing it, right? So then we go, okay, we're doing it. We have figured out how to fund this. We get some money from city council. We have some private money. We have some money from the state. Put it all in the pot, stir it up. We've got the funding. So then we have to find a wall. So then we want it to be we want it to be visible. So we put out a call for the wall. So we do that. We find a great wall with a garden next to it that's protected. That's very unusual, so check. Then we have to figure out the design process. So we put out a call for artists. We put together a good advisory committee. We all pick the artists together. Like, we sort of retain veto power in case, like, somebody picks an artist, but we've learned not to nominate an artist we don't want picked. So then they pick a great artist, and now we're in design process, and then we're going to have paint days. So we're going to put a call out to the dance community to come help create this mural. We're having a symposium. We're going to have a giant dedication. So we build in these steps along the way to engage people in the process and really shine an extra bright light on the subject that's at hand. So we try to, you've got to be really careful, like where you find a wall, making sure the community knows about it, picking the right artist, making sure the design is strong, making sure then when it goes up, a lot of our work now is painted in studios all over the city on squares of polytab. It then goes up on the wall. We bring out the big boom lift and the scaffolding. It gets attached to the wall with 3 coats of acrylic gel. You cannot take it away. And then the artist and team of artists will perfect it. There's always a lead artist and a lot of assistant artists. And so that keeps the pathway moving. So those assistant artists will move up to lead artists. And so, it's like in our art ed program, like 65% of our teaching artists started out as kids in our program. So there's these pathways, so people are always moving towards something. So was that a good answer? It was sort of long-winded, but okay, good. Thank you. Yes?
Yesterday you mentioned that you collaborated with other artistic disciplines.
Yes.
And, twice you mentioned theater. My question is, was it film theater or live theater or both? And how do those collaborations work?
So we did a project with Interact Theater, who had a playwright, and he's a playwright and an actor who went out. He wanted to do a 3-act play about our work at the prison with crime victims, and so he co-wrote the play with the men in our class, and the men in the class helped build a few of the props. And Interact is a great theater company in Philly. And then they had performances, and after each performance, we had a talk back where we could talk about the issues of the criminal legal system. And then it won a Barrymore. We were nominated, and then it won. I was like, this is so odd, but we were very thrilled, right? So that's a good example. And then in Kensington, this other playwright wrote a play that started in our storefront there, and it walked around the neighborhood, and it took place in the neighborhood. So that was another really interesting partnership. We had another artist do a project with Iraqi people who fought in the Iraq War and the Iraqi community in Philadelphia, and he did an 8-part radio series, and we partnered with NPR and Prometheus Radio, and it was all about displacement and what it feels like when you're somewhere very new, or you lost your life, or you're sort of in between Iraq and the United States, and what that unsettling feeling is like. And then he did a performance on Independence Mall, it was like a live radio play. So those are just a few examples.
Thanks.
Yes, yes.
Throughout the story of mural arts, I feel like there's also an underlying, also incredible story around advocacy and the power of grassroots organizing, especially when it is supported by city government, and not only ideological support but financial support as well. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what are your top 1 or 2 biggest lessons that you've learned about advocacy and how to advocate effectively, not just for, the belief in the value of the arts, but also financial support for the arts as well.
Well, this is the big takeaway for me is, and thank you for that question, is that I have learned that I talk about me being tenacious and I sort of joke, but it's not a joke. It's like super serious. Like you have got to be on that path to advocate for things in a way that is unrelenting. And you have to just keep on it and never make any assumptions or take anything for granted or be complacent, because nothing ever stays the same. Like, right? You can have support and it can go away. And with the arts, it's very fragile. It just is. We're not in Miami or LA or Chicago or New York where they have departments of cultural affairs with budgets of $100 to $200 million. It's Philly. It's got like a $6 million budget. And Mural Arts has a rather modest budget from the city. So it's like, but it's like beyond advocating for mural arts is advocating for the sector. It's advocating for the rights of artists. It's like, and so everything that we do, and whenever I'm talking about artists. I'm talking about what artists' rights should be. I'm talking about small to middle-sized organizations that need support, and that people should shut their eyes and think about what Philly would be without the arts and culture sector, and it's impossible to imagine, absolutely impossible. And so we just try to we infuse those talking points in all we do because we believe it, and I believe that we need to be generous and not just talk about us, but talk about the sector, and one that we just have to stay on that path and be relentless and talk to people at all levels of government about it all the time. And also have proof of concept, like whatever evidence we have that we have gathered over 30 years, we need to talk about that really clearly and succinctly and over again. We had a strategic plan done years ago, and the tenets were quite simple, but very serious. One was you create great work that's excellent, you do that. Number two, you then talk about that work tenaciously, cogently, passionately, endlessly. And if you do 1 and 2 well, you inevitably you build your circle of advocates and supporters and donors and a family. And so that 1 and 2, and I don't think I understood 2 well enough till about 12, 15 years ago, that part was so critical to bridge. You just don't do good work. You have to build this village around you to get to do that good work.
Hi. I really appreciate how you're addressing restorative justice. And I was just wondering, how have your views and perception of incarceration and the criminal justice system changed since you started working on this program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was first invited into the state prison, I was invited in by the art therapist. This is 2002. And I said to him, well, we don't work in the state prison. That's what I said. And then he said, well, we would like you to come in, and you'll be very surprised by the talent here. And I remember driving out to the prison. It's over an hour away, but not that long, not that far. And and then when we parked, and I was with 2 interns, and I remember walking in and just feeling this sense of foreboding. I had to confront my own bias, in what I thought, who did I think was here? And when I was walking down this long hallway with the art therapist, he said to me, Jane, you're going to be stunned by the talent. He said, creativity here, it's like a wildflower that's growing in a vacant lot. It's going to grow and veer towards the sun, and you can't tamp it down. And I thought, that's so interesting. That creativity in this place is flourishing in some way. So I walked in and saw really pretty amazing paintings, and then I had talked myself into that the people in the class would not possibly relate to anything, to me, or to what I was talking about. But at the end of the talk, they said, well, Ms. Golden, if only we'd had an anti-graffiti network or a mural arts program, maybe we wouldn't be here. And the truth is, our lives went dark about age 10. And so I think over the years, I have learned to be much less judgmental. We're not there to judge people. We're there to provide opportunities and to understand what I would say is the very punitive nature of our criminal legal system. And that there are a lot of people in there who are there for second degree or conspiracy murder. I've learned all this, who didn't do the shooting, and because it's Pennsylvania, they'll die in prison. And some of them have been there 42, 52 years, and when is enough enough? Like, when is enough enough? And you know, it calls into question prisons. We've created so many prisons in this country. Is this what we need? And then the prisons become sort of like, there's like our de facto system of delivering services in some strange way, when it's really communities that were long forgotten by government that helped create this in the first place. So it's sort of like we just have to ask ourselves a lot of very serious questions about race, about the history of discrimination in this country. Like, you just go into Greater Phoenix. There are very few white people there. Why? Why? And so it has been a humbling experience. And I really look forward to going. I mean, I feel like they're like extended family. So we bring people there all the time so that they can see the men in the prison, not as offenders, but as a group of people who many of them did something very wrong. But they have paid their dues over and over and over again. And they are deep thinkers. They're compassionate. They want to give back. They want to do good things with their lives, just like all of us. Yes.
Hi, Jane. I have a two-part question. The first one is very dry. We talk a little bit about restoration. I'm wondering, like, what part of the budget that is, and does the community get involved? Anything else you want to share about that? The second part is, where do you see mural arts in the future, 20 years from now?
Oh, two great questions. So restoration, sadly, is a tiny part of our budget, so tiny. And no one ever wants to fund restoration because they want to fund new things, and it just makes me very sad. So we try to stretch those dollars as far as we can, and we'll try over the next few years to develop a cash reserve for restoration. We have to protect this collection because in LA, so many murals were lost because nobody was taking care of them. There was no steward, and so we want to be that steward. And so we have to work really hard to raise those funds. And the community gets involved in restoration because no one wants their mural touched. And even when the mural doesn't look good, people are like, don't touch my mural. And I'm like, well, you can barely see the mural. And people are like, I know, but we love the mural. And so it's really, like I said yesterday, a double-edged sword that we're so happy people love the work so much, but then it's very hard to restore it. And so we have a database of the conditions of like 1,000 murals in the city that we work off of. So some murals, I mean, the wall is coming, the stucco is coming off the wall because in Philly, it's old architecture, so that's the enemy for us because you can't always discern that. And so murals over time, so if a building is structurally sound, they could last 20, 30 years. If not, you're in trouble. So that's where the community isn't actually restoring it, but we have a lot of conversations on the front end. And then where mural arts will be, I mean, I guess it's my hope that at some point mural arts will have like an endowment, that we grow our restorative justice and our porch light program, that we're able to continue to provide services to even more people. And the other thing is that I always want us to be a hub for artists. So our fellowship programs, apprenticeship programs, I would like to see them grow. And I'd like us to have more risk capital for younger artists and new artists to come in and work in public space. We do it a little bit now. I wish we did it more. The history of public art making in this country has been pretty effete. I mean, back in the day when we were working, I mean, the public art people would say to us, you're not doing public art. They would say it like not in a nice way. And I would say, well, if we're in public doing art, what do you think we're doing? And they would say social work. And they would say it as if they had like a lemon in their mouth. And I would say to the kids, hold your heads up. We're doing public art. Don't let anyone tell you we're not doing public art. And then, of course, many years later, they're all like, oh, we want advice, and they're applying for grants to do what we're doing. I'm like, phony, 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 right? Like, you never liked us. But, you know, and I remember this very vividly. I got a call from the New York Times. It's probably like 8 years ago. And this reporter was doing a story on social practice, and he said, in some ways, you all were the original social practice artists, so you should feel very proud of that. And I said, well, I feel very proud of I'm happy about this conversation. I'm going to actually relay this to all my colleagues from back in the day. And I did, and they were like, yay, we were on the cutting edge. I'm like, that's right. So anyway, so that's my hope for mural arts. I hope and my big hope, of course, is that it never goes away, because you just never know, right? So I just keep my fingers crossed.
Jane, we have time for one more question.
Okay.
So,
These questions are great.
Sorry. My question is with regards to like the young offenders. And I used to work with them here, and at that time, it was the early 90s, and things like we tried to do projects, and then the county would come in and cover them up. And yeah, it was really heartbreaking, so it was so lovely to hear the things. And so do you take young offenders and other like at-risk groups that are in the city and use them, teach them as well, like to be part of these mural projects? Like I didn't know if I heard that or like how you were getting like the people like that maybe weren't trained but had like natural gifts and things like that.
Right, that's exactly who we're working with. So people come to us through the DA's office and the county jail. So it's 18, for the guild and the rec crew, it's 18 to 25 is really the age range. Everyone learns how to make a mural. They also get OSHA certified. They learn to build scaffolding. They learn to prepare walls. We introduce them to the painters union. So they're getting all this skill building and they're working on projects.
I think the thing was with when the prisoner, like the people in prison, were saying, I wish it was at 10, because my project was first 10 to 18 and then 13 to 21. And like, is there anything in the city for like the 10-year-olds?
In our art education program, we work in the Juvenile Justice Service Center. That's kids in detention. And we work in 3 other settings that are for kids who are really been failed by the system. And they're, they're in placement. And so we have programs for them, and we have programs for kids who've never been in trouble, who just love art. So we have a broad reach. We also, in the county jail, we're working with what's called the direct file juveniles. They are kids who've been arrested for very serious crimes. They haven't been tried yet, but they're facing just dire consequences. But we work with them, and when you work with them, you feel like you're 15 years old, like they don't. And last week we dedicated that mural, and the artist said, the lead artist, and it was a beautiful mural that they made, and he said, none of you, what you told me when we first started was that none of you could do this, that you couldn't do it, and you weren't interested in art, and you didn't want to do art, and then they all did art. And then 3 of them spoke at the dedication who said they couldn't speak at the dedication, they weren't going to speak at the dedication, and then they spoke at the dedication. And they all talked about feeling like someone. And then right before I left, a few of them came up to me and they were like, Jane, can we do this? Can we do this more? Can we do this again? And I was like, oh, that's so great. Because this is a light for them in a sea of bleakness. So it's very important. Okay, everyone, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. So while one of our panelists is on their way, we're gonna start. But I thought I would just introduce myself a little bit. First, thank you, Stockton. Thank you, Michael and John and Ryan Casey for inviting me. My name is Michael Chovan-Dalton. We have a lot to get to, so I'll try to be brief here. I've been a photography professor for 25 years. 21 of those years I've been at Mercer County Community College. I've participated in organizing shows now for the better part of 8 years. I'm also the director of the J.K.C. Gallery in Trenton. And I'm a founding member of an organization called Homecoming Biennial, which we founded with a group of artists and I to provide the kind of celebration students would have had they not graduated in their living rooms during COVID. We're actually now on our 3rd biennial, and it's been going really well. My attention to wellness in the art space, though, didn't really start until 2015, when I was feeling isolated and stagnant, both in my practice and also, honestly, in my classroom. Don't tell Mercer that. Hi. I had been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I thought maybe there's something we can do, I could do with photographers, and not just photographers who are well known, but photographers who are really had a strong practice, who may not be so well known. And I started with some old friends. And something started to happen. Everybody was so enthusiastic about reuniting, getting together, reconnecting. And not only were people asking to be on the show, but they were also asking me to be part of something they were doing. And so the community was starting to build. And it seems so simple and so obvious, and it took me 48 years to learn it, but I really did need community because I was raised in a time when it was, make your own way, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't ask for help, don't give anyone too much credit, make the work, show it, and it's all you. And then, it was somewhat antithetical to that idea to do this community building. So we grew the community, and we all started collaborating enthusiastically, and then it changed how I thought about teaching. It changed how I thought about my students. It's important to see your students as individuals, of course, but I started to see them as their future collective, as their future collaborators. And I started to emphasize the idea of networking, not just so for advancement, but for building that future community. Because if you're in it as an artist for the rewards, for the shows, for the accolades, you're gonna have a really disappointing life. Those accolades are few and far between. Even when you do achieve that success, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of downtime. So you have to love the process. And because I wanted to emphasize you have to love the process, I had to think about the kind of artificiality of the deadline, that semester deadline, and how disruptive that is to the creative process. And so instead of emphasizing that outcome, that final output, I started to emphasize the journey along the way, the process along the way. And that allowed me to have a different sort of idea about how to grade students, how to assess students, how to make rubrics for students. And so that really changed everything for me. It changed how my own practice, it changed my own belief in community, and it changed how I teach my students. And it's been really just like a fantastic renewal for me because I felt energized again, my teaching practice, everything I do. And I started feeling okay, doing more work for the institution. So in preparing for this panel, I took a deep dive into some of this idea about art and health and wellness and, hi, that's right, and art and medicine, which truly fascinated me. And it just so happened I had started reading a book by Daisy Fancourt called Art Cure, The Science of How Art Saves Lives. And as I was searching that, another name came up. Allie, who was on our panel, was on a podcast called See Eye to Eye with Monica Holt, talking about the same things. And it turns out you two know each other. And I just want to read some things that I learned from these two brilliant people. Making art is a form of control that you may not have in other parts of your life, meaning it becomes part of your identity. And having identity is a path towards wellness. Actively engaging in art can help build what is known as cognitive reserve. That is a strengthening and building up of endurance for our neurons, which can slow cognitive decline later in life. Art activities can even boost immunity and even the production of cytokines that reduce inflammation. And boosted immunity and health also leads to mood improvement. People who engage in the arts, so this one's really good, have a form of DNA methylation pattern that shows them to be biologically younger than their linear age. And who doesn't feel biologically younger than our linear age? So my point about this is, first, I love it, it's interesting, but also that it's real. What we're talking about today with our panel is not an abstraction, it's not theoretical, it's not an experiment in pedagogy. It's real, it has impact on people's quality of their lives. And with that, why don't we get to our panel? I'll do a quick introduction, and then you all can sort of pick up with an opening remark. Maybe you want to start thinking about culture and community as community care right away, but however you want to handle it. We have Jane Golden, of course, Executive Director, Mural Arts. Ali Mayer-Lakuta, Assistant Vice President of Arts and Wellbeing, New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Craig Shofed, Executive Director, Artworks in Trenton. Jocelyn Sabri, Executive Director, Camden Fireworks. And Lauren LeBeau Craig, Executive Director of Newark Arts. So welcome and thank you all. It's a brilliant panel.
Thank you.
So Jane, why don't you get us started?
Okay, so I spoke before for an hour, so I don't want to bore anyone. I just feel very honored to be with so many esteemed, wonderful people, some of whom I know. And, I think the whole notion of art and community care, it's so deeply profoundly connected because, like, for us, every time you're working in public space, you're exhibiting sort of care and that you're there to listen, and like people see it as a form of respect, and that it's a way of putting a stake in the ground and saying that your lives really count. And whether it's a small mural that's very small and intimate, or if it's big and sweeping project that's like multi-layered and complex, I think there's just like the core values are really the same about listening, about care. You know, it's not public art if you don't involve the public in ways that really matter. You can do art. You know, certainly there's a period of time in our country when there was like plop art and a sculpture would appear on a corner. And we always felt like we don't want the art to feel like it dropped down from Mars. Like, what's that doing here? Instead, we should minimize surprises and like increase the amount of engagement and hope.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Meyer-Lakuta. I am the AVP of Arts and Wellbeing at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, which means that I lead all of the initiatives there at the intersection of arts and health. And the foundation of that work is really what Michael started to talk about, that the arts are actually essential to our health and well-being. They're not just a nice to have, they're not something extra, they're not only for you if you have talent or a gift or have money, but they're actually a part of how we are human, right? They're a part of how we create community, how we connect with one another, how we process what we're going through and then express that to others, how we connect across difference. And now there's decades of evidence that show that the arts and engaging in the arts are beneficial to our individual health, mental health, physical health, social health, and cognitive health, as Michael was saying. And beyond that, they're essential to our community health. They're essential to the social cohesion and connection in our communities, and they should be a public health priority, right? And invested in as public health initiatives. And so that's behind the kind of work that we do at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, where we have programs in hospital, we have programs in community, we run New Jersey's first arts prescribing program where people get prescriptions to engage in the arts, and we have a research lab partnership with Rutgers where we get to study the impact of all of that. So I'm sure we'll get into that more, but really trying to share the good news that the arts are good for your health so that if you have access to resources and the means, you can engage in them more often. But the way we develop our programs are to provide pathways to access for those who might not, and to change a community mindset around the value of arts, artists, and arts organizations in our communities as really drivers of health and well-being.
Thank you. My name's Craig Shofet. I'm the Executive Director of Artworks Trenton. How I think it impacts Artworks health, and it's about community. It's about bringing community together. So if there are any, as Jane said earlier, if there's any divisions within the community, this is the time that you're going to see it. And for us specifically, that we've invested a little bit more in our public art as a whole. We've done a larger project just a while ago in South Trenton, and it was replacing a wall or redoing a mural on a prison wall that faced into a neighborhood, right on the edge of the neighborhood. And the things that we learned about community and the things that we learned about what they really want and what they want to see and how they want to work together, that became such an important part of how, when I took over Artworks, how we decided to grow Artworks and make community, knowing that that was going to be our contribution to health in Trenton. You know, we didn't want to step on a lot of the works that a lot of great organizations were doing in Trenton, but we wanted to be like maybe a conduit, a foundation for community and bringing a city that's 7 square miles, but seems very disconnected sometimes, together.
You know, Craig, just a quick thought. Craig's being a little modest. Artworks is really an anchor of art in Trenton, New Jersey.
I would say more about that later.
Okay.
You know, I'll make it big.
Oh, you weren't being modest. Okay.
No, I'm not being modest. Just yeah. But thank you.
Hi, I'm Jaslyn Sabri. I am an interdisciplinary artist as well as the executive director of Camden Fireworks. And I would say that I pose an interesting perspective as an organizational leader. Due to my art and art education background, I think that I sit at a place where, as an artist, I really have this relatable instinct toward artists, and it's been kind of a pivotal part of my life to support them. And then in thinking about community as well, in my work as an artist, but then in also my work as an executive director, really making sure that at Camden Fireworks, when I stepped into the role, that we're following our mission, which is to use art for social change. So very recently, we were referred to as an artist service organization, and I just loved that because it is what we do. You know, we work very closely, or I would say at a bridge between community and our artists, and so we work with a lot of our New Jersey offices, such as the environmental development authorities and the Department of Environmental Protection, and right now we're working on a major beautification project in the city of Camden and making sure that our artists are being funded first in all of that through various murals and sculpture projects that will be installed all across Waterfront South, which is one of the most impoverished areas in Camden, New Jersey, where our gallery resides. We're also working right now on our Clay Collective, which is a program that supports women who have faced the justice system. And so they are being able to receive free clay instruction as well as resources and community to go along with that. And so we've been partnering with a lot of our community partners in Philadelphia and across the state of New Jersey, with the Camden County Corrections to make sure that ladies, as soon as they're coming out of the justice system, are met with the community and resources where they can, return to society and grow in the arts. So those are just some of the initiatives that we are currently working on at Fireworks that really, I think, uphold this idea of culture as community and making sure that our artists and our community are working in flow towards our mission together.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren LeBeau-Craig. I'm the Executive Director of Newark Arts Council. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all my wonderful panelists for being here today as well. At Newark Arts Council, what we do is we make sure that our Indigenous Newark artists can remain rooted, resourced, and recognized as the city grows. And that's important because we have billions of dollars coming into the city in development, and we want to make sure that our artist community can not only benefit from that development and that funding, but also can stay there and can remain there. And so that's a big part of the culture of care that we're building in the City of the Arts, that is Newark. But I also think that important for me personally is at Newark Arts Council in terms of the staff. They are a part of the community, and a lot of them are artists. So making sure that we have an internal culture of care at the Newark Arts Council is very important to me, which may look like pay equity and benefits and encouraging time off and not maximizing bandwidth, which is very hard right now. But it's also really important to me personally because I am a healer. I'm a shamanic healer. I'm a trauma-conscious yoga teacher. And so I try to bring all of that with me into this leadership position, which I'm calling healing-centered leadership.
Yeah, I know you've held workshops and all, and in that practice, that movement practice, right? I was just thinking on that note about Newark, in terms of sort of like Newark and Camden and Trenton and Lansing, Newark might have maybe the most growth, right, in terms of population and building and construction and all that, and that's such a tightrope to walk, right, and such a balance to have, and of course Philly, but sorry, but how do you walk that line between the benefits of that and the fear of losing the community, the fear of losing the artist?
Exactly. And I think the way that we're doing it is, first of all, we're very aligned with the city government, and we're aligned with the developers. We make sure to establish partnership with the developers and make sure we're advocating and allowing them to know that, when you come into a city like Newark, the arts have to be at the table. There's no way that you can not involve us and involve the people that have been on the ground in making Newark what it is today. Arts and culture has allowed Newark to become what it is and what it will be. So making sure that they understand and have put a value on it is really what we're there to do. And so that has worked so far.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So is your mayor, is the position of your mayor, because I think you have a good mayor, like that, so backs you, the artists, the arts sector, and bringing developers to the table? Like, how do developers know that? Like, and who's setting the tone? Because I always feel that leadership is so important because that's who opens the door for things to happen.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just was so curious.
It goes right with our next question.
We have a wonderful arts mayor, Mayor Raz J. Baraka, and he certainly sets the tone in terms of making sure that the developers know the importance, and even everyone on his team also, Fayemi Shakur, who's the arts and cultural director, they always are keeping us in mind in terms of making sure we're a part. NJPAC as an anchor institution is incredible in terms of that as well. But it does start at the top, and it's also, they've established an arts and education district in the city of Newark, which has been huge because all the small businesses and all the anchor institutions downtown that can then get on board and understand, like, now we're an arts district. Okay, what does that look like? Okay, so yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, but I think Newark is a special city because there is so much support from top to bottom.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just
yeah.
add too, like in some cases, the arts organization can be the developer. So NJPAC is now building out our campus with $250 million of real estate development, including housing and our new community center and retail, and just selected 13 artists for 13 different public art installations that'll be across the campus. So thinking about how we can take our role as an anchor cultural institution and develop a kind of real estate plan for our district too, which is probably the extent of my expertise there. Like, we have like a head of real estate to take on those projects, but it's been really interesting to see us taking that on as an anchor, kind of like pushing the boundaries of what an arts organization typically would do.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about thinking of your organization as essential civic infrastructure, right? Yeah, so I wonder if you have thoughts on that as well.
Because of the size of Trenton and that there aren't many arts organizations, Artworks has an outsized influence on the city and the surrounding, the county. So when I became the director there, we had to, I told the staff that we now have to own that and that we have to shout it. And we have to make people understand that it's not just art, just drawing or just summer camps. Those things are all important, but we have to teach businesses around us that we are an economic influence on our region. And that also means that we have a lot of social capital. There's so many things that go along with that, but a lot of people do not recognize that. So we've gone about doing a study with Princeton University that we'll be able to hand over to businesses to say, this is the economic impact that we have to now change how people see us so that we aren't the first people that they defund. We employ artists, something that, a lot of people didn't understand. Every single person on my staff is an artist. And we have an art leasing program. 80% of the revenue from that program goes right back to the artists as part of that program. So what we're trying to teach people around us is that art is in our name, but that's not the only thing we do, much to the dismay of my accountant. Because we do a lot of things. We're a community center, we're an arts center, we're a health center, we're rental space for the community. We are sometimes the voice for the community.
You're a social club.
Yeah, we're everything, for this city. And so we're trying to, refine that and make that a foundation and also then teach people that this is what we really do. Yes, art is our guiding light, but the city is who we serve. And if you don't have an artworks, that's not going to be a good thing.
For sure. Just to add, and I think that Fireworks has a lot in common with Artworks as well in terms of the community design. And so we also work very close with our public officials and find ways to partner with all different organizations across the city. So that might be the Center for Environmental Justice, or working with immigration groups such as Viet Lead, who do a lot of our city funding. A lot of people don't know that Camden City has over 150 farms, small farms, in the city. And so working alongside all of those organizations to put murals there, similar to what Jane has done over at Mural Arts. And then as well as running some of those programs through our own facility. And so at Fireworks, we also have an outdoor corridor that we've been developing over the last couple of years. And we're currently running a community co-op out of that garden space. And so we're currently installing a medicinal herb garden in that area, so that as people visit our garden, they can just find comfort there with all of those herbs, as well as just that outdoor space. And that program brings in a group of 20 young people in high school who are building garden beds and, getting their hands in the soil, working on nutrition education, and all of these types of things that are directly serving the community to kind of create this ecosystem that bridges art and healing in this kind of revolving circle. And so, community is always at the forefront, and the government in Camden is very interested in making that connection with us. And so oftentimes we're in a sea of accepting the invitations that come to us because the city is looking to make sure that we're included in all of these various development projects that are happening all across the city of Camden.
Yeah. So you've already started talking about partnerships. Health systems, schools, housing agencies, municipalities. In terms of health systems, how has that partnership come along?
Sure. So in 2021 and 2022, we established the Arts and Wellbeing Endowment from our partners at Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey and RWJ Barnabas Health System. And out of that grew two really signature kind of arms of our work, or signature partnerships, that now both institutions really enjoy, right? They like for a myriad of reasons. But our arts and healthcare programs are in partnership with RWJB. We have artists in residence at the bedside working with patients, making music, making art. We have a poet in residence starting this summer. We have public concerts in lobby spaces, so staff, patients, visitors can have some soothing music as they enter and maybe wait for a loved one. And then we program their staff culture and heritage celebrations with local artists to enliven those and celebrate those. And we've reached over, I think, 25,000 people in the last 3 years since those programs have started. And we're really curious about measuring the impact and finding new ways of exploring there. So, for example, this is a fun anecdote. Just listening to music for about 15 minutes before a surgery can lower your pre-op time, lower your need for sedatives, lower your general anesthesia need while you're in surgery, then lower the pain medication you need when you're done, and help you recover faster and get discharged from the hospital faster. Just 15 minutes of recorded soothing music. So can we do that at the hospitals, right? And do a study and start that. In the book you were referencing, Daisy's book, she kind of reverses it at the end. She's like, what are we actually denying people of if we don't include the arts in our holistic systems of care, right? Where this is actually to our detriment, right? And then with Horizon, they're our partner who we started the Arts RX program. And so that's arts on prescription. And people
Prescribing art.
Prescribing art. And so when we think about, maybe a show of hands if you've heard the term social determinants of health. Okay, a few. So these are all of all the ways that we have access in our community to the things that drive our health and well-being. Like, health begins outside the four walls of a hospital, right? It's our access to food, it's our access to clean water and clean air. But all of this research shows that it's actually access to arts and culture is a social driver of health. And so it's resourcing physicians and community health workers to make referrals for the arts in the same way they would make a referral to a food pantry or a housing support or legal support. And we've had over 300 participants and associated guests participate in over 1,800 arts activities. And important to us is that it wasn't just NJPAC where people are going, although we are a very popular choice. But we wanted to create an ecosystem in Newark and support our other really vibrant arts organizations. And so we have about 14 arts organizations that people can choose their activities from. And although everything they go to is free on their part, we pay the arts organizations full price for every single thing we register someone for because we want to show value to the arts. And what we've shown in early analysis is that the value is actually 1/18 the cost of just a primary care appointment. So it's a really underutilized, available, affordable resource to support health and well-being.
And Lauren, you founded RestFest, right? Yes, which is a whole community wellness event. How have you sort of seen the interaction of art and wellness in that respect? And outcomes, maybe?
Yes. So as a part of RestFest, which I do with my partner, Marcy DePina, who's also a leader in Newark, she runs Newark City Parks Foundation. So we're all about making sure that communities like Newark have spaces where they can rest, where they can play. We always end the RestFest with a high-frequency dance party. And then we provide different activities like yoga, like breath work, like art making. It's always a part of it because we know art is wellness. We know that, right? But I think what we are trying to demonstrate, both myself and then also as a part of Newark Arts, is that, you know, this is such a hot topic. So at Newark Arts, we're really trying to demonstrate to our artist community, like, hey, you as an artist are also a wellness practitioner. So how can you align yourself with these dollars that are available for this new kind of, it's not new, but this new trendy thing. So this year, we have a mini grant program at Newark Arts called Art Start. And it's a 25-year-old mini grant program. This year, we put a focus on arts and wellness programming. Why? Because it's important. We all need extra care, especially in the neighborhoods of Newark. But also, we want to allow our applicants, who are mostly artists, to start to align the language of how they're talking about their practice with wellness, because we can see that that's where it seems we're trending.
Right. Yeah. And then along those lines, and Jane, you spoke to this quite a bit this morning. How do you ensure that communities most affected by social or economic inequities are centered and not just served in the work, in the organization?
Well, I think, one, we try to create a very equitable distribution of where we're working. And when, I just want to talk about the work in Kensington. So when we started there, we went before a large group of community people, and this is just when the opioid crisis was just starting in. And we said, well, we want to, because we've done this in other neighborhoods, open up a hub space, take over an empty business. We're going to offer a wide range of community and art-making activities. We're going to do, we're partnering with, that's where we partner with the Department of Behavioral Health, but it's going to be great for everybody. So everybody was like super excited. So we move in and we start our programming, and then the opioid crisis just heightens. And the city says to us, can you take on more people? And we're like, sure. So in the end, we're probably 1,000 people a month are coming through our doors. We had nurses, social workers. We always had food. There was just so much wound care that had to happen. Everybody was trained in Narcan. It was just intense. It was intense and intensely wonderful. And then what happened is the city, then people in Kensington started complaining that organizations, and they named a couple organizations, were really doing harm reduction, which was bad, and they were less supportive. And they pressured city council, who pressured L&I to give zoning violations to a number of landlords. And our landlord, we didn't know this, we weren't zoned for like all these people. So they were like, look, you have to shut down. So I said, well, we're part city, so we don't get this. So we fought back, but then I got to the bottom of it, that the community didn't really if you're looking at the community writ large, they did not all feel served. They felt like we were serving people struggling with addiction, housing insecurity. And we were doing it because it was like a crisis, right? There were just people like everywhere on the streets. It was like almost impossible to walk. And so we thought we were being good citizens by being really responsive. On the other hand, I got it that some people felt like we had really negated serving them. Because it's like a working class community inundated with like drugs, fentanyl, like opioids, heroin, and so then everybody, what happens when there's like a crisis, everyone sort of lines up against each other, and there's huge conflict. So our funder, at that point, our funder said it was COVID, we lost our funding, the city's mad, everybody's mad, and so then we said, okay, what are we gonna do? We're not gonna leave Kensington. So we decided what we would do is, we waited a year. We tried to rent other spaces. People were told not to rent to us. I was like, what? Are you kidding? So we're like, we are just going to find a place. So we did. And then Color Me Back, our same-day work program, we put that program in there. We do not have open hours, but we have programming that people can sign up for. And then we got this vehicle, sort of a mural mobile, and we go out and we serve everyone. So we just sort of, now the community is completely on board, all of them, because we've worked everywhere, in every park, in every rec center, in every shelter, like we're serving the entire community. But it was definitely a math problem that we had to solve, and we had to stop. We had to first be scolded, and then stop, and then not be defensive, take a deep breath, and then figure out if we want to provide services in Kensington, which we do, that there are a range of people here, whether we agree with it or not, this is the way to do it and survive and be really supported. And so now I would say it's 100%, it's changed.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying
that's great.
that. We went from really doing well to zero. It was like the summer. It was up, down, up, down, up, down. Now good, level.
Yeah, and Craig and Jaslyn, you're in these cities that are bordered by such different communities and all. How do you make that balance between wanting to be appealing to a broader audience, but also serving the people you want to serve? Yeah.
That is the tightrope that we do walk, right? We have to, we're in the middle of Mercer County, which is probably one of the richest counties in New Jersey. We're in the center of that. And in the beginning, that's who we were serving, those people. It was reflected in when we did our surveys. It was basically serving 75% of the people that were using artworks were from outside of Trenton. And I knew that we had to change that. One of the first things I did when I started working as the executive director was hiring a full-time community and education director, which meant now we could go into Trenton. We could talk to people where they were instead of screaming, we're here, come in. A lot of people weren't comfortable with that. So we really had to go hire somebody from the community to go out into the community. And the stuff that we found was insane. That some people didn't know Artworks was there. That's, to me, I can't understand that, but it was a problem. I then went out and hired a marketing person as well. But the other thing also was to actually have a board that was from Trenton and looked like Trenton. So that was my next thing, is to make sure that we actually had other people from the community that were talking about community. That changed the people that were coming in the door drastically. I think we started serving 60% of the community of Trenton by my last count, so we really flipped that around in 2 years. And I'm super proud of my team for really working hard to know what they had to do. And I'll pass it on to you, Jess.
I think for us in Camden, I think it comes down to the importance of the work that we're doing in Camden. And I think that Camden in recent years has gone through a lot of transformation. But I think a lot of our work is just so guided by social change, and that is a theme that, connects us across the world, right? And so I think what we do intend to do in terms of serving the community of Camden, and this was my personal goal when I joined Camden Fireworks about 5 years ago now, because I was teaching in Camden. And so, overall I've been working in Camden for, over 11 years, telling my age a little bit. And I remember when I was teaching in Camden and during my master's program with Boston University for art education, I had a big goal to make sure that I was connecting all of the stakeholders who are involved in the arts all across Camden. And, I really, like you said, a lot of my own students did not know that Camden Fireworks was right there in their backyard. And so before I started working at Fireworks, actually, I found them because I wanted my students to be able to have their senior exit exhibition at a gallery in Camden. And we made it happen. And so that was the start of my relationship with Camden Fireworks, and I think that I have continued that, and even in my role now, in making sure that Camden artists are hearing about us first, and that all of our outreach goes out to the Camden community first. And so we have a very Camden first, way of operating, but then also, again, going back to myself and my own practice, knowing that nothing is done in a silo, and that we need to bring in our community in Philadelphia. We are 6 minutes away. We need to go up to Newark, and we need to, participate in Garden State Art Weekends and North to Shore and all of these different, statewide connection points. And so that has always been a part of my mission for the gallery. So even as we're working on environmental justice projects. So for example, we created a short film that is titled "The Environment is Generational." There are 32% of children in Camden who live with asthma, right? That is the percentage compared to a 12% rate across the state of New Jersey. And so those issues are important to address, and we make sure that the Camden artists are at the forefront of that. So the artists that we bring in who are leading those projects tend to lean Camden artists, and then we also invite the community to come in and be a part of the making of that. And so that was a puppet film. We did shadowbox puppetry, and we invited the community in to be a part of that research, to be a part of the creation of that film. And so they were in there with us in our workshops, creating these puppet forms and all of the things. And so, that is just the way that we really work on these major social issues, but make sure that we are connecting it to the community of Camden as well as the community abroad.
Yeah. Open to all, how has your institution, your own practice, or your institution moved beyond presenting art to actively supporting community well-being?
Well, I talked about that this morning. I think the Porch Light program is an excellent example of that. And I think we always had thought theoretically that the work was about well-being, but we never did it with as much intention as we do when we started Porch Light. The fact that we could partner with with the Department of Behavioral Health, that we could work with, we're not art therapists, right? But we can partner with therapists and clinicians and really sort of look at the work is in a multi-layered way, that people are coming into the space, that they're able to talk to social workers, that they're able to talk to peer specialists and counselors from DBH, and they're able to learn about art making, and then they're able to actually, and it's also a job, and then they are supported as they take their next step in life, because we're very clear that it's like for people who are coming into this space, it's sometimes the first time for them that they've been in this kind of structured environment. And so we want to really make it a space that values and lifts up respect and wellness and love in some way, of course. And so I think that, and then through the Yale School of Medicine, because it was a 4-year evaluation, we were really able to, what are they looking at? What are they looking for? And so they left us with ways for us to evaluate ourselves. And the people from Yale, thankfully, two of them are at Penn, and so they check in with my colleagues once a year, and so to make sure that we're looking at the data in a way that really helps us guide the program and make choices about what are additional things we need to add. But I would say it feels very, the work feels very multi-layered now, as opposed to maybe 15 years ago. And I think that's the value when you can partner with a big department like DBH, which has a lot of assets and resources that a program like Mural Arts wouldn't have. Sort of like you know what you know what you don't know, and where does your knowledge begin and end, and someone else picks up.
Yeah.
I love the Porch Light program. I have like two thoughts, I guess, or two threads of thought. Like one is that you actually don't have to do anything new. Like the evidence shows that like the presenting of the art, the engaging in the workshop is health promoting in and of itself. So like artists and arts organizations should have that confidence that you actually don't have to do anything new. But there are ways to do things with more intention. And so like all of our kind of community-based programs are created in response to community health needs. So we have the Lullaby Project, which is a songwriting program for expecting and new moms and parents to compose personalized lullabies for their babies over 6 weeks of songwriting workshops. We're trying to get that down in Trenton. Maybe we can talk.
Let's talk.
And then they get to perform them on stage at NJPAC once a year in the celebratory concert with their families. We have a program called Ritual for Return, which is a 14-week theater-based program for returning citizens that culminates in a homecoming rite of passage. And this year we were able to expand the program to Camden, so we'll have 2 homecomings, a women's cohort in Newark May 2nd and a men's cohort in Camden May 9th. And we have a photo voice program for our LGBTQ community in partnership with the Pride Center that looks at photography and creative writing and lived experience for our LGBTQ community. And then another facet is just co-location. So how can you have 2 things in the same place at the same time that people need? Kind of use the arts as a bright, shiny object to get people there. And then what else can they access once they're there? So for our free summer concert series, Sounds of the City, we always have, Barnabas and Horizon signing people up for mammograms and health screenings and making those appointments for them.
Excellent.
I love all of that. I just wanted to touch on something you said about your Rituals of Return series. So as an artist, I am very spiritual, and I just found it fascinating that our theme for this year is titled Rituals of Return. And so we're gonna have to touch base and see how we can connect this further to the art, because we will be having an exhibition up titled Mending the Seams that opens this weekend. So I just wanted to start with that. But then to your question, Michael, we, I think, do this work of kind of going beyond just the art alone by making sure that we're listening, right? So as people are coming into our exhibitions, as people are coming into our workshops, participating in our programs, we're paying attention and we're listening to them. And, for example, with our Clay Collective that's working with these justice impacted women, okay, they're coming to us, right? The door's open. They finally feel safe with us to go deeper, right? And to be vulnerable with us and share some of the things that, are happening in their lives, some of the things that they need. And then figuring out how can we safely now address these things on a deeper level, right? Where it's not just about coming in and making art projects, but how do we connect them to resources, right? How do we partner with other community members and community organizations that are doing similar work? So now we have a full ecosystem, again, we keep saying that word, that, just stays with people beyond this one experience. Last year I launched our first residency program where we actually took 3 artists internationally to Sao Paulo, Brazil for a 2-week residency there. And throughout that process, these artists, they had never had a passport, they'd never been out of the country. And so for us, it's really about making real and impactful change and just connecting across the broader communities and the global society to, again, express that these issues that we're confronting at Camden Fireworks are global issues. And how do we learn from each other across the world to be able to correct them together?
Whomever.
Yes, so I think I would like to talk about well-being as it relates to public safety. So for Newark Arts Council, one of our signature programs is the Newark Arts Festival, and something we've been doing since the beginning. We're celebrating 25 years this year. Yes, thank you. Something we've been doing since the beginning is partnering with developers for space, right? There's so much empty retail, especially in downtown Newark and a lot of our downtowns around the state. And it's like, rather than it just sitting there empty, why don't you partner with your local artist or arts institution? And that's what we've been doing, is activating empty retail during the Newark Arts Festival, which really makes a difference in a neighborhood. Now you have foot traffic, now you have nightlife, you have lights on, and that is a huge difference when it comes to public safety. And then there's also a part of that is our public arts. We're working with, or public art, we're now working with Rutgers Newark, who is they're embarking upon a study of how public art impacts crime in an area and whether crime goes down when there's public art there, which I think is really interesting. We were a part of a huge public and private partnership called Four Corners Public Arts in downtown Newark. I don't know if anybody has been to Treat Place in Newark, but it was a formerly very disinvested alleyway that is parallel to Broad Street, which is the main street in the middle of downtown Newark. And so developers, Newark Arts, and a few other partners got together to turn that into a mural block. It has now become a tourist destination. It has now become a place where people have festivals. There's lights on, because that street also bordered 2 different schools. So the work that we're doing really impacts community well-being in so many different ways. And it's just about being able to message that and allow for our civic leaders to understand the value and the impact, to make sure that we have the structural investment so that we can continue to do the work that we do.
That's really brilliant, yeah. Craig, you're gonna get the last word.
It's gonna be short. Artworks is just, we've identified that we have to use our voice to help community. So other organizations that are doing good works, we make sure that we advocate for them. We're their fiscal sponsor. We're partnering up with them in their spaces. We're just trying to be a beacon for them and to shout what the good works that they do. I think it's the best way to use our social capital. And, some of the board, again, the new board, coming in and bringing some of those ideas, bringing some of those new community organizations. And I think that's also a way that has changed the audience for artworks. Yeah. And again, that grows exponentially from there.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to embarrass Jane just a little bit here because I have the privilege of doing so. I know you're stepping down pretty soon, and we're all sad about that, but you were just named the recipient of the Edward G. Rendell Lifetime Achievement Award from the Philadelphia Citizen, and congratulations on that, yes. And thank you so much to our panel. This has just been fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Cagno, Executive Director of the Noise Museum of Stockton University. Let's give another round of applause to our very talented, esteemed panel, our keynote. We talk about compassion, we talk about care. That was a thread throughout the summit today. What's also the thread throughout the summit today is that this is a statewide summit. So our colleagues, our friends in the cultural industry from Newark to Trenton to Camden and Philadelphia across the bridge and right here in Atlantic City. So that was intentional and strategic. I also want to take a moment to thank the committee who really put this together. And I'm going to go scan the room real quick. So Ryan, she was looking down. So Ryan, she was on the committee with the gallery. So thank you for making this happen. And Angie at the Performing Arts Center. I'm scanning. The Dean of Arts and Humanities, Ian Marshall. This is an Arts and Humanities College initiative, and the President Joe, yes, his vision, but the driver behind it is our Dean. So Ian, thank you so much. And then Michelle and Sarah, and then my co-chair, who has a lot of talent and patience with me, John O'Hara. So thank you so much for the Lions lecture yesterday. So I don't know if I missed. And then, of course, our production services to make sure everything works. If you guys can come to my house and fix my TV, that'd be great. So now you're going to get your steps in, okay? So we're going to go to our breakout sessions, and we're going to go to a deeper level. We have 4 dynamic breakout sessions right upstairs where you had lunch. They're right there on each side of the tables, 2 and 2. And you have an opportunity to ask your questions and engage in further dialogue. And one of the things we heard about was collaborations. So, and I also want to recognize one of our sponsors for Atlantic City programs is, and she's looking down as well, North to Shore. Alicia, good to see you. So, thank you so much, and we'll see you upstairs.